The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with hundreds of alien species. They sat in floating chairs that circled upward like a massive bowl. Lights of blue and gold hung in the air. The station called Horizon Prime had hosted these meetings for thousands of years. Today, like every other day, humanity sat at the lowest level. The smallest chairs. The worst view. Ambassador Taejin Yu stood at the center platform. He was 63 years old. His hair had turned white from stress, not age. For 20 years, he had come to this hall. For 20 years, he had begged for justice. Today, his hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "I present evidence of crimes against humanity," he said. The translation machines carried his words to every corner of the hall. 3 months ago, the Velki Empire cut food supplies to our colony on New Busan. 40,000 humans starved to death. Children, elderly, families. He pressed a button. Images appeared in the air above him. Bodies, empty streets, crying mothers holding children who would never wake up. 6 months ago, Taejin continued. Velki mining ships landed on the human cemetery world of Goyang. They dug up our graves. They harvested minerals from the bones of our ancestors. We asked them to stop. They laughed. More images. Broken tombstones. Machines tearing through sacred ground. 1 year ago, the Velki took 37 of our best scientists. They said it was for a joint research project. We have not seen them since. We have evidence they are being used as test subjects. The hall was silent. But it was not the silence of shock. It was the silence of beings who simply did not care. At the highest level of the hall, the Velki delegation sat like kings. They were tall creatures with 6 limbs and hard shells the color of dried blood. Their eyes were black and empty. Their leader, High Speaker Gorath, made a sound that his species used for laughter. "The human is emotional," Gorath said. His voice was like stones grinding together. "This is why they remain at the bottom of galactic society. They cannot control themselves. They see hardship and call it crime. They see strength and call it evil." Some of the other species laughed. Not all of them. But enough. Gorath stood. He was twice the size of any human. "The Velki Empire has conquered 100 worlds. We have brought order to chaos. We have brought civilization to animals. If humans cannot survive under our guidance, perhaps they do not deserve to survive at all." Taejin felt something break inside him. 20 years. 20 years of smiling at creatures who saw him as nothing. 20 years of believing that words could change things. He was tired. So very tired. "I have nothing more to say," he whispered. He stepped down from the platform. He sent a message to Earth. His resignation. He was done. But before he could reach the door, every screen in the hall flickered. Every hologram shifted. The face of a man appeared. He had gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen war. His face showed no anger, no fear, nothing at all. President Do-hun Kwok of the United Earth Federation looked out at the galaxy. "For 80 years, he said, humanity has been part of this council. For 80 years, we have followed your rules. We have paid your taxes. We have bowed our heads and accepted our place." His voice was soft, almost gentle. That made it more terrifying. "We came to you as friends. We asked only for fairness. When you took our resources, we said nothing. When you insulted our culture, we smiled. When you killed our people, we filed complaints and waited for justice that never came." Gorath's laughter had stopped. The entire hall was frozen. "I have watched the Velki starve our children. I have watched this council do nothing. I have listened to High Speaker Gorath call us animals." Do-hun leaned closer to the camera. His eyes were cold and dark like deep space. "No more." The word hung in the air. "For 80 years, humanity has been preparing. Not for friendship, not for acceptance. For this moment. We knew, from the very first day, that the galaxy would never see us as equals. So we smiled. We nodded. We pretended to be weak. And while you laughed at us, we built weapons you cannot imagine. We trained soldiers who do not know fear. We created technology that will make your empires burn." Gorath finally found his voice. "You dare threaten the Velki Empire? We have 10,000 warships. You have barely 100. Dohun smiled. It was not a warm smile. You have 10,000 ships that we have studied for 80 years. You have weapons we learned to defeat before your soldiers were born. You have an empire built on fear. We have something stronger. He paused. We have rage. 80 years of rage. Every dead child. Every stolen scientist. Every insult and humiliation. We remember all of it. And now, we will answer all of it. Dohun straightened his uniform. When he spoke again, his voice carried to every corner of the galaxy, to the Velki Empire and all who stand with them. No more talk. Let the war begin. The transmission ended. The hall exploded into chaos. Species screamed at each other. Some ran for their ships. Others laughed. Certain that humanity had gone mad, Gorath stood perfectly still. For the first time in his long life, he felt something strange. It took him a moment to recognize it. Fear. He crushed the feeling down. Humanity had 12 colonies and 100 ships. The Velki had conquered civilizations far greater. This would be a quick war, a lesson to the galaxy about what happened to those who challenged the strong. He turned to his generals. Prepare the Third Armada. We will crush their outer colony first. Make it slow. Make it painful. Let the humans watch their people die. And they will beg for peace. His generals bowed and left to prepare. Gorath looked at the empty platform where Ambassador Taejin had stood. The old human had not left. He was watching the chaos with strange calm. Their eyes met. Taejin smiled. It was the smile of a man who had been waiting for this moment for 20 years. Gorath felt that fear again. Stronger this time. He turned away and left the hall. Far away, on Earth, President Dohun Kwak stood at a window. He looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Velki were preparing to attack. Good. Let them come. Admiral Nari Bok entered the room behind him. She was tall and sharp, with eyes that missed nothing. It's done, she said. The galaxy knows. Yes. Are we ready? Dohun turned to face her. For the first time in years, he smiled. We've been ready for 80 years. Now the real work begins. Outside the window, human warships began to rise from hidden bunkers. Thousands of them. Ships the galaxy had never seen. The war had begun. 3 weeks passed after President Dohun's declaration. The galaxy watched and waited. They expected fire and explosions. They expected desperate human attacks against Velki positions. They expected the quick death of a small species that had dared to challenge an empire. Instead, they got silence. Human colonies went dark. Communication signals stopped. Ships vanished from known routes. It was as if humanity had simply disappeared. In the Velki war chamber, High Speaker Gorath studied the reports with growing amusement. His generals stood around a massive holographic map of human space. They are hiding, Gorath said. Running. Just as I expected. The loud speech was just noise. When faced with real war, they scatter like insects. General Dreth, commander of the Third Armada, clicked his claws together. Should we pursue them, High Speaker? No need to rush. Let them hide in their holes for a while. Let the fear grow. Then we will dig them out, one by one. Gorath pointed to a small blue dot on the map. Start with this one, Jeju Nova. It is their agricultural colony. Take it. Burn their farms. Let them starve again. But this time, let them know it is punishment. Dreth bowed. It will be done. I will take 500 ships. More than enough. Make it slow, Gorath reminded him. I want the other humans to watch. Dreth left to prepare his armada. 500 warships, each one capable of destroying a city in seconds. Against farmers and empty fields. It would be easy, far across the galaxy. In a hidden bunker beneath Earth's mountains, General Kyung Shin watched the Velki fleet assemble. Spy satellites, disguised as space debris, sent him every detail. Ship positions, weapon systems, shield frequencies. Kyung was an old soldier. He had fought in 3 colonial wars and commanded humanity's defense forces for 15 years. He was not a man who smiled often, but today, watching the Velki walk into his trap, he allowed himself a small grin. He opened a channel to the stealth destroyer Black Heron, hidden in an asteroid belt near Jeju Nova. Captain Hyun, they are coming. 500 ships. Exactly as we predicted. Captain Hyun Baek's voice came back calm and steady. Understood, General. We are ready. All 40 ships are in position. The colonists have been evacuated. Jeju Nova is empty. Wait for my signal. Let them land. Let them lower their shields. Then show them what humans can do. Yes, sir. The channel closed. Kyung turned to his officers. Begin the broadcast preparations. I want every species in the galaxy to see what happens next. 2 days later, the Velki Third Armada arrived at Jeju Nova. General Dreth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. Through the viewing screen, he could see the green and blue planet below. Fields of grain stretched across its surface. Small farming villages dotted the landscape. It looked peaceful, helpless. Scan for human ships, Dreth ordered. None detected, General. The orbital stations are empty. No defense satellites. No military presence at all. Dreth made a sound of disgust. Cowards. They abandoned their own people. He turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to the planet's surface. The screen flickered. No response. The colony was silent. They have fled, Dreth announced. The humans have run away and left their world to us. Begin landing operations. Secure the farms. Take anything valuable. Then burn the rest. His fleet began to descend. 500 massive warships, moving toward the planet like a swarm of hungry insects. As they entered the atmosphere, they lowered their shields to conserve power for landing. Standard procedure. They had done it 100 times before. They did not know that 40 human ships were watching from the darkness of the asteroid belt. They did not know that Captain Hyun Baek had spent 3 weeks positioning his fleet in perfect ambush formation. They did not know that human scientists had spent decades developing weapons specifically designed to kill Velki ships. Hyun watched the enemy fleet descend. Beside him, Lieutenant Sora Nam had her hand on the weapons console. She was young, only 26, but she had trained for this moment her entire life. Shields are down, Sora reported. They are fully committed to landing. Hyun nodded. Signal all ships. Fire on my command. He waited 1 more second. Let them get a little closer. Let them feel safe. Fire. 40 human ships launched their missiles at the same moment. But these were not ordinary missiles. They were smart weapons, designed by the best minds humanity had produced. Each missile carried a payload that could adapt to its target. Each one knew exactly where to hit for maximum damage. The Velki never saw them coming. The first wave of missiles struck before any alarms could sound. Explosions ripped through the Velki formation. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were torn apart in seconds. The missiles punched through their hulls like needles through cloth. General Dreth screamed orders from his bridge. Shields up. Return fire. Where are they shooting from? But his ships were in chaos. They were designed for orbital bombardment, not close combat while landing. Their weapons pointed downward, toward the planet. By the time they tried to turn, the second wave of missiles arrived. Captain Hyun watched the destruction with cold satisfaction. Second, volley complete. Moving to close combat formation, the 40 human destroyers burst from the asteroid belt like ghosts. They were small compared to the Velki warships, but they were fast. Impossibly fast. They danced between the larger ships, firing precise shots at engines and weapon systems. Lieutenant Sora Nam was a perfect weapon. Her targeting was flawless. Every shot hit exactly where it needed to. Within an hour, she had personally disabled 15 enemy ships. General Dreth's flagship tried to escape. Captain Hyun tracked it personally. You're not leaving, Hyun said quietly. He pushed his ship to maximum speed, weaving through debris and explosions. The Eternal Conquest was trying to reach open space, trying to jump away and warn the Empire. Hyun fired 1 missile. Just 1. It flew straight and true, directly into the flagship's engine core. The Eternal Conquest exploded in a ball of white fire. General Dreth died without ever understanding what had happened. 6 hours after the battle began, it was over. 340 Velki ships were destroyed. 160 managed to flee. damaged and terrified. Not a single human ship was lost. On Earth, General Kyung Shin broadcast the battle footage to every corner of the galaxy. He stood before the cameras with his hands clasped behind his back. Today, the Velki Empire sent 500 warships to attack our farmers. They thought we were weak. They thought we would hide and beg for mercy. He paused, letting the images of burning Velki ships play behind him. They were wrong. For 80 years, humanity smiled and nodded, while the galaxy treated us like animals. For 80 years, we let you believe we were primitive and helpless. We needed you to believe that. We needed time to prepare. His voice hardened. The preparation is complete. We are not prey. We never were. We are the hunters you forgot to fear. And now, the hunt begins. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, species who had ignored humanity for decades suddenly paid very close attention. On the Velki homeworld, High Speaker Gorath watched the footage in stunned silence. His third armada, destroyed by 40 small ships. His best general, dead. His empire's reputation, shattered. For the first time in his life, Gorath understood that he had made a terrible mistake, but it was far too late to fix it. 2 months had passed since the battle at Jeju Nova. The galaxy was still talking about it. A small fleet of human ships had destroyed an armada 5 times their size. Stories spread from station to station, planet to planet. Some species began to look at humans differently. Not with respect, exactly. With curiosity, and a little bit of fear. High Speaker Gorath felt that fear too. But fear, for a Velki, quickly turned to rage. He stood in the war chamber of his palace on Velkara. Around him, every admiral and general of the Velki Empire waited in silence. The holographic map showed the full extent of their military power: 10,000 warships, 2 million soldiers, enough strength to crush 100 species. We will not make the same mistake twice, Gorath announced. The humans surprised us because we underestimated them. That ends now. We will not send a small force. We will send everything. Admiral Korth, his most experienced commander, stepped forward. Everything. High Speaker, that would leave our borders undefended. Let them be undefended. No species in this galaxy would dare attack us while we destroy humanity. And once the humans are gone, we will remind the others why they should fear us. Gorath pointed to a small yellow star on the map. Sol. Earth's sun. 10,000 ships. We will surround their home world. We will block their sun. We will give them one chance to surrender. When they refuse, and they will refuse, we will burn their planet to ash. We will kill every human in existence. And we will make sure the galaxy never forgets what happens to those who challenge the Velki. The admirals bowed. The largest fleet in galactic history began to assemble. On Earth, President Do-hun Kwak received the intelligence reports in his underground command center beneath Seoul. Admiral Nari Bok stood beside him, studying the numbers with a grim expression. 10,000 ships, she said. They're bringing everything they have. Do-hun nodded slowly. They're afraid. That's why they're hitting this hard. They want to end this quickly before other species get ideas. Can we win? It was a simple question. Do-hun considered it carefully before answering. Maybe, if everything works perfectly. If our new weapons perform as designed. If our people fight like I know they can. He looked at her. It will cost us. A lot. Nari straightened her shoulders. Then we make the cost worth it. The president called an emergency meeting of humanity's war council. Military commanders, scientists, and colonial governors appeared on screens around the room. In the corner, Dr. Min Ji-han waited quietly. She was a small woman with tired eyes and brilliant mind. For 20 years, she had led Project Horizon, humanity's most secret weapons program. The Velki fleet will arrive in 72 hours, Do-hun announced. We cannot match their numbers, but numbers are not everything. He turned to Minji. Doctor, is Project Horizon ready? Minji stood. The satellite network is fully operational, sir. We can generate localized gravity wells anywhere in the solar system. The effect is like creating small black holes that last for a few seconds. Anything caught in them will be crushed or thrown into the sun. How many ships can we destroy? Hard to say. Thousands. Potentially. But we can only use it in specific locations. If they spread out too much, the effect is reduced. Do-hun turned back to the council. Then we need to make them bunch together. We need to make them angry and careless. We need to hurt them so badly that they forget tactics and just charge at us. He outlined the defense plan. Mars would be their first fortress. Jupiter's moons would launch drone swarms. Saturn's rings hid millions of mines. Each planet in the solar system had been prepared for this moment. And if they break through all of that? One of the governors asked. Then we fight at Earth's doorstep, Admiral Nari said. And we show them that humans don't know how to surrender. 72 hours later, the Velki Armada arrived. 10,000 warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. They formed a wall of metal and death that stretched across millions of kilometers. High Speaker Gorath himself led the fleet. Watching from the bridge of his personal flagship, the Endless Night, he opened a broadcast to Earth. Humans, your resistance ends here. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. Your leaders will be executed. Your military will be disbanded. Your colonies will become Velki property. If you refuse, every human on Earth will die. There will be no second chance. President Do-hun appeared on the screen. He looked tired but calm. You came all this way just to die in our solar system? Gorath's eyes narrowed. You cannot win. You have a few hundred ships. We have 10,000. Then come and prove it. The transmission ended. Gorath screamed orders. The invasion began. The first wave of Velki ships hit the Mars defense line. Human platforms hidden in the Red Planet's canyons opened fire. The battle was brutal and fast. Velki ships fell by the dozens. But they kept coming. Their numbers were simply too great. Commander Wook-Jang led his fighter squadron, the Ghost Wing, into the heart of the enemy formation. His pilots were the best humanity had produced. They flew experimental fighters that could turn and accelerate faster than anything the Velki had ever seen. Stay tight, Wook ordered his squadron. Target their command ships. Make them pay for every kilometer. The Ghost Wing tore through the Velki formation, destroying dozens of ships in their first pass. But the enemy kept pushing forward. Mars fell. Jupiter's drones were overwhelmed. Saturn's minefields claimed hundreds of ships but could not stop the tide. Admiral Naribok commanded the main human fleet from her flagship, the Iron Soul. She watched her tactical display with steady hands as the enemy advanced. They're pushing through everything. Her first officer reported. We're down to the last defense line. Pull all ships back to Earth orbit. This is where we make our stand. The remaining human fleet gathered around their home world. 300 ships against more than 7,000. It should have been impossible. Nari opened a channel to all ships. This is Admiral Bach. I know the numbers look bad. I know many of us won't survive this day. But behind us is our home. Our families. Our future. The Velki want to erase us from existence. They want to prove that the weak cannot stand against the strong. She paused, her voice hardening. Let's prove them wrong. Let's show them what humans are made of. The final battle began. Human ships fought like demons. They used every trick, every weapon, every ounce of courage they possessed. And then, when the Velki were fully committed to the assault, Dr. Minji Han activated Project Horizon. Reality twisted. Space itself bent and screamed. Across the battlefield, pockets of impossible gravity appeared. Velki ships were crushed like insects, their hulls folding inward like paper. Others were thrown violently off course, crashing into each other or spiraling into the sun. In seconds, 2,000 Velki ships were destroyed, but it was not enough. Gorath roared with fury and pushed his remaining fleet forward. Human ships began to fall. The Iron Soul took heavy damage. Admiral Nari barely survived when her bridge exploded. Rescued at the last moment by Commander Wook-Jang's fighters, the battle lasted 14 hours. When it was over, the Velki had lost more than 5,000 ships. Humanity had lost nearly everything. But Earth still stood. Gorath, bloody and humiliated, ordered his remaining ships to retreat. As his fleet limped away, he broadcast one final message to the galaxy. Any species that helps humanity will be destroyed. Any planet that shelters them will burn. This is not over. We will return with twice the force. And next time, nothing will save them. He expected silence in response. He expected the galaxy to cower as it always did. Instead, 3 species responded within the hour: the Nuri, the Gon, the Telos. 3 races that had suffered under Velki rule for centuries. Their message was simple: we stand with humanity. The war had changed. Humanity was no longer alone. 6 months into the war, the galaxy looked very different. The Nuri were small, gentle creatures with soft blue skin and large eyes. They had been traders before the Velki conquered them. For 300 years, they had been forced to work as slaves, moving goods for an empire that treated them like animals. When humanity stood against the Velki and survived, the Nuri saw something they had forgotten existed: hope. The Gon were warriors. Tall, muscular beings with 4 arms and skin like stone. Their homeworld had been conquered 500 years ago. The Velki had killed their king and scattered their armies, but the Gon never forgot who they were. They had been waiting for a chance to fight back. Humanity gave them that chance. The Telos were scientists. Their bodies were thin and their minds were vast. They had created technologies that the Velki wanted to steal. When they refused to share their secrets, the Velki exiled them to a frozen moon at the edge of known space. For centuries, they had worked in secret, developing inventions they hoped would one day free them. 3 species, 300 years of suffering, 1 common enemy. Ambassador Taejin Yu had come out of retirement to build this alliance. He traveled in secret, moving from hidden bases to forgotten stations, meeting with leaders who had never trusted anyone before. In a small room on a Nuri trade station, he sat across from Elder Mivak, the oldest living Nuri. The small alien's hands trembled with age, but his eyes were sharp. "You ask us to fight," Mivak said. "We are not warriors. We are traders. What can we offer against the Velki war machine?" Taejin leaned forward. "You have something more valuable than weapons, Elder. You have ships, thousands of cargo vessels that travel to every corner of the galaxy. You know every supply route, every hidden depot, every weakness in the Velki economy." Mivak's large eyes blinked. "You want us to cut their supply lines. I want you to starve them. No food, no fuel, no replacement parts. Let their fleets float dead in space, while their soldiers go hungry." The old Nuri was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "For 300 years, we carried their goods and smiled at their insults. For 300 years, we dreamed of the day we could stop. That day has come." On a different station, Taejin met Warlord Goran of the Gon. The massive warrior towered over the human ambassador, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. "Words," Goran growled. "Humans love words. The Velki gave us words too. Promises of peace if we surrendered. Lies. I'm not offering words," Taejin said. "I'm offering revenge. Your warriors are the finest in the galaxy. But you have no ships, no weapons, no resources. We can give you all of that. In return, you give us your strength." Goran's stone face cracked into something like a smile. "My people have waited 500 years to break Velki bones. We will not wait any longer." The Telos were harder to convince. They had spent centuries hiding, protecting their technology from those who would misuse it. Their leader, a thin being called Nava, studied Taejin with cold, calculating eyes. "The Velki exiled us because we refused to give them weapons," Nava said. "Why should we give them to you?" "Because we're not asking for weapons to conquer," Taejin replied. "We're asking for weapons to survive. If the Velki win this war, they will hunt down every species that defied them, including you. Perhaps, but perhaps, they will forget us. Hidden as we are." Taejin shook his head. "Gorath doesn't forget. And he doesn't forgive. You know this. You've known it for centuries. The only question is whether you wait for him to find you, or whether you help us stop him first." Nava was silent for a long time. Then, finally, the Telos made their decision. "We will share our knowledge. But only if you promise that when this war is over, technology will belong to all species equally. No more empires. No more conquerors." Taejin extended his hand. "You have my word, and the word of humanity." The Alliance of Free Worlds was born. Captain Unji Kang was given command of the Allied flagship, a massive vessel called Unity. It was crewed by humans, Nori, Gon, and Telos working side by side. At first, the different species struggled to communicate. Their languages were different, their customs were strange. Even their bodies worked in different ways. A young human engineer named Sok Ryu solved the problem. He worked with Telos scientists to create a universal interface that allowed all ships to communicate and coordinate instantly. Gon warriors and human soldiers trained together, learning each other's fighting styles. Nori navigators shared their knowledge of hidden space routes. Slowly, the Alliance became something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Captain Unji led the first major offensive against a Velki shipyard in a system called Dark Harbor. 300 Allied ships faced 200 Velki defenders. All ships, report status. Unji ordered from her command chair. Human voices responded first, then Gon, then Nori, then Telos. Different languages, different species. One purpose: begin attack. The battle was fierce but short. The Velki were not prepared for the Alliance's new tactics. Gon assault ships punched through the defensive line while human destroyers provided cover fire. Telos jamming technology disabled Velki communications. Nori ships evacuated prisoners from the shipyard before it was destroyed. When it was over, the Alliance had destroyed the shipyard and 200 Velki vessels. They had lost only 30 ships of their own. News of the victory spread across the galaxy. More species began to whisper about joining the Alliance. Former Velki slaves on a dozen worlds started to rebel. The empire that had seemed unbeatable was beginning to crack. One by one, the Alliance liberated occupied worlds. They freed the Nuri homeworld first, then a Gon colony that had been used as a prison camp. Each victory brought more allies. Each battle proved that the Velki could be beaten. High Speaker Gorath watched his empire crumble with growing desperation. His advisors brought him reports of lost territories, destroyed fleets, and rebellions on worlds that had been conquered for centuries. How is this possible? He demanded. They are weak species, inferior creatures. How can they defeat us? None of his advisors had an answer. None of them understood what humanity had known from the beginning. The Velki ruled through fear. But fear only works as long as people believe you are unbeatable. Once that belief is broken, fear turns into something else. Courage. Gorath made a decision. If he could not win through strength alone, he would use the Empire's most terrible weapon, the Silence Protocol, an ancient technology hidden in the moon of Velkara itself. It could tear apart the fabric of space, destroying entire solar systems in an instant. He had never used it before. The weapon was dangerous, unpredictable, and might destroy Velkara as easily as its target. But he was out of options. Target Earth, he ordered his scientists. Prepare the Silence Protocol. If we cannot defeat humanity, we will erase them from existence. The countdown began. 72 hours until the weapon was ready. 72 hours to save everything humanity had ever been or would ever be. Captain Hyun Baek received the intelligence report on his ship, the Black Heron. He had spent 6 months fighting behind enemy lines, gathering information and destroying supply depots. Now he had the most important mission of the war. The weapon is on Velkara's moon. His Telos intelligence officer reported. Heavy defenses. Almost impossible to reach. Hyun studied the tactical display. Almost impossible is not impossible. Get me the schematics. Get me a team. We're going to that moon. Captain, the chances of survival are very low. Hyun smiled grimly. Then, we better not fail. He opened a channel to Earth. President Do-hun's face appeared on the screen. Mr. President, I have a plan to destroy the Silence Protocol, but I need permission to take my ship into the heart of enemy territory. Do-hun looked at him for a long moment. Can you do it, Captain? I don't know. But I know that if I don't try, we all die anyway. The president nodded slowly. Then go. And good luck. The Black Heron turned toward Velkara. Behind it, the Alliance prepared for the final battle. Everything would be decided in the next 72 hours. 1 year had passed since President Do-hun spoke those 6 words that changed the galaxy. 1 year of battles and death and sacrifice. 1 year of proving that the weak could stand against the strong. Now it would all be decided in one final confrontation. The Alliance of Free Worlds had gathered the largest fleet in galactic history. Human ships flew alongside Nori traders, Gon warships, Telos science vessels, and dozens of species that had joined the cause. 5,000 ships, united by a common purpose. Their target was Velkara, the heart of the Velki Empire. President Dohun stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Soul's Light. His advisors had begged him to stay on Earth, to lead from safety. He had refused. I asked humanity to fight this war. He told them, I will not hide while others die for my words. Admiral Nari Bach commanded the fleet from beside him. She had recovered from her injuries at the Battle of Earth, though scars still marked her face. She wore them proudly. All ships report ready, Mr. President, she announced. We can begin the attack on your command. Dohun looked at the tactical display. Velkara was a dark world, covered in metal cities and military bases. Its moon hung nearby, a gray sphere that held the weapon capable of destroying Earth. Captain Hyun Baek and his stealth squadron were already on their way to that moon. Everything depended on them reaching it in time. Begin the attack, Dohun ordered, and send a message to High Speaker Gorath. Tell him we are here to end this. The Alliance fleet surged forward. Gorath received the message on the bridge of his personal fortress, a massive station orbiting Velkara. He had surrounded his homeworld with every ship his empire still possessed, 6,000 vessels, the last strength of the Velki military. They dare attack our home, he growled. They will pay for this insult with their lives. He turned to his science officer. How long until the silence protocol is ready? 48 hours, High Speaker. That is too long. The humans could reach the moon before then. We are working as fast as possible. The weapon is ancient and unstable. If we rush, it could destroy us instead of them. Gorath slammed his claw against the console. Then protect the moon at all costs. Nothing reaches that surface. Nothing. The final battle began. The Alliance fleet hit the Velki defenses like a hammer. Human destroyers led the charge, their advanced weapons tearing through enemy formations. Gon warships followed, their warriors screaming ancient battle cries as they crashed into Velki cruisers. Nuri ships darted between the chaos, rescuing escape pods from both sides and jamming enemy communications. Admiral Nari directed the battle with cold precision. She had spent months studying Velki tactics, learning their weaknesses. She knew how they thought, how they fought, how they made mistakes. Push the left flank, she ordered. Force them to bunch together. When they cluster, hit them with the gravity weapons. The Alliance ships obeyed. Slowly, the Velki defensive line began to bend. Ships fell on both sides. But the Alliance was gaining ground. Meanwhile, Captain Hyun Baek and his stealth squadron approached Velkara's moon from the shadow side. They moved slowly, carefully, avoiding every sensor and patrol. Lieutenant Sora Nam sat at her console, tracking enemy movements. Heavy defenses around the main entrance. Hundreds of guards inside. This will not be easy, Captain. Easy was never the plan, Hyun replied. Find us another way in. Sora studied the moon's surface. After several minutes, she pointed to a small crater. There, an old maintenance tunnel. It was sealed centuries ago, but our cutting tools can get through. It leads to the lower levels of the weapon facility. That's our path. All ships, prepare for landing. The stealth squadron touched down on the moon's surface without being detected. 20 human soldiers in advanced combat suits stepped onto the gray dust. They moved quickly toward the maintenance tunnel. The cutting tools worked perfectly. Within an hour, they had breached the ancient passage and were moving through the facility's lower levels. They encountered guards several times. Each time, the humans dealt with them quickly and quietly. Hyun led his team deeper into the facility. According to their intelligence, the Silence Protocol Control Center was at the very core of the moon. That was where they needed to go. In orbit, the battle continued to rage. The Alliance was winning, but slowly, too slowly. Every hour that passed brought the Silence Protocol closer to activation. President Do-hun watched the tactical display with growing tension. Where is Captain Hyun? He should have reached the control center by now. No word yet, Mr. President, an officer reported. Communication with the moon is being jammed. Do-hun closed his eyes. Everything depended on one man and his team. All they could do was keep fighting and hope. Inside the facility, Hyun's team had reached the outer ring of the control center. The defenses here were heavier. Velki soldiers filled the corridors, armed with weapons that could tear through armor. We need a distraction, Hyun said. He turned to Sora. Can you draw their attention while I reach the core? Sora nodded. She had known this mission might cost her life. She had made peace with that. Give me 5 soldiers. We'll make enough noise to wake the dead. Sora, don't, she said. Just finish the mission. That's what matters. Hyun gripped her shoulder. You're the best weapons officer I've ever served with. She smiled. I know. Sora led her team down a side corridor. Moments later, explosions echoed through the facility. Alarms screamed. Velki soldiers rushed toward the noise. Hyun and his remaining soldiers ran for the control center. They burst through the final door and found themselves in a vast, circular room. At its center stood a massive machine, covered in lights and cables, and standing before it, with his claw on the activation switch, was High Speaker Gorath himself. Human, Gorath hissed. You are too late. In moments this weapon will fire. Your homeworld will be torn apart. Every human will die. Hyun raised his weapon. Step away from the controls. Gorath laughed. It was a terrible sound. Do you think killing me will stop this? Another will take my place. Another will finish what I started. The Velki will never bow to creatures like you. We don't want you to bow, Hyun said quietly. We just want you to leave us alone. Impossible. You have humiliated us. You have broken our empire. For that, you must be destroyed. All of you. Every last one. Gorath pressed the activation switch. Nothing happened. The high speaker stared at the console in confusion. He pressed the switch again, and again. The machine remained silent. Hyun allowed himself a small smile. Did you think you were the only one with spies? Doctor, Min Ji-han has been in your systems for weeks. The silence protocol was disabled before we even landed. Gorath screamed with rage. He lunged at Hyun, his claws extended. He was old, but he was still Velki. Still dangerous. Hyun did not fire. Instead, he stepped aside and let the old alien crash to the ground. It's over, he said. Your fleet is losing. Your weapon is useless. Surrender, and maybe your people will survive. Gorath lay on the floor, breathing heavily. For a moment, he looked like what he was. A tired old creature who had spent his entire life taking from others. A bully who had finally met someone who would not back down. You cannot win, he whispered. Not truly. Even if you defeat us, others will rise. The galaxy will always have empires. Will always have conquerors. Maybe, Hyun admitted. But that's tomorrow's problem. Today, we just have to beat you, he signaled his team. Secure the prisoner, and send a message to the fleet. The weapon is disabled. The war is over. The message reached President Do-hun minutes later. He closed his eyes and let out a breath he had been holding for a year. All ships, Admiral Nari announced. The silence protocol has been neutralized. Press the attack. Today, we end this. The Alliance fleet surged forward with renewed energy. Within hours, the remaining Velki ships had surrendered. High Speaker Gorath was taken prisoner. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries had fallen. 1 year later, the Galactic Council met again on Horizon Prime. But this time, everything was different. Humanity sat at the head table, alongside the Nori, the Gon, the Telos, and a dozen other species. The lowest chairs were empty. There were no lowest chairs anymore. President Do-hun, now gray and tired, addressed the assembly. He did not speak of victory or conquest. He spoke of something harder. We did not fight this war to become what we fought against. We did not bleed and sacrifice to build a new empire. We fought because no one should live in fear. We fought for the right to exist in peace. He looked around the hall at hundreds of species, many of whom had been enemies just a year ago. Today, I ask you to choose something harder than war. I ask you to choose trust, to believe that we can build something better together than any of us could build alone. Admiral Naribok stood at his side, proud and strong. Captain Hyunbaek watched from the gallery, his arm in a sling from his final battle. Ambassador Taejin Yu wiped tears from his eyes. The galaxy has always been ruled by the strong, Do-hun continued. Today, let it be ruled by the just. Let it be ruled by those who lift each other up instead of pushing each other down. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was soft. A year ago, I said 6 words that changed everything. No more talk. Let the war begin. Today, I say 6 new words. Let there be peace. Let us rebuild. The hall was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, one by one, the delegates began to stand. First the Nori, then the Gan, then the Telos, then species that had never stood for anything before. Soon, the entire hall was on its feet. The war was over. Something new had begun. Far below the station, Earth turned slowly in the darkness of space. Its cities glowed with light. Its children played in parks and dreamed of stars. They would never know how close they had come to destruction. They would only know that when the darkness came, their people had stood together and refused to fall. That was the story humanity would tell for generations. Not a story of conquest or empire. A story of ordinary people who faced impossible odds and chose to fight. A story that began with 6 simple words. No more talk. Let the war begin. And ended with 6 more. Let there be peace. Let us rebuild.